Hey, this is Natalie with the Fifth Journey. We're going to be doing a really lovely, pretty floral mix fragrance today. I actually just did the honeysuckle so 2 days ago that you'll see, and that one moved super fast. But I had about an ounce left of the honeysuckle, and I've had some small sample bottles of some different floral fragrances that I've been wanting to use, but there's not enough to really do a batch. So I was thinking, well, I have some things that I can mix together. So you can see my pile of oils over there. I had about, a third to half an ounce of some different florals and floral mixes. So I did the honeysuckle, I have some lilac, gardenia, wild rose, and then kind of some blends, and it smells really good. So this is actually the floral. It looks really gross right now, but I'll explain that. That is the fragrance oils that have been mixed together, and then I put an equal amount of the warmed oils in there to dilute it, so hopefully it doesn't shock it as much, because if you go back and watch the honeysuckle video, it moved very fast, and it still turned out fine, but it moved super fast. So I'm only going to do just the one color. I'm not going to be trying to do anything fancy in the batter this time. But to explain the color, the gardenia fragrance oil actually had a bit of a pink color. I'm going to get this out of the way. It had a bit of a pink color. So that, I'm not going to tip it. I don't know if you can see the bottom, but the bottom layer has a really pretty pink. That layer is starting to set up because it's starting to cool. But I did the micas. So I did the gold and the pink mica last time, and the gold set up super fast and the mica riced a little bit. And I have my pipettes ready to go over here, so I'll do the top. So I have the gold with a little bit of oil, the same pink, and then I have some purple, and I had just mixed in the rest in there, and there's really not very much in there, so it should give it a little bit of a pinky purple light color to it. There's really not very much in it, so I'm not anticipating it coloring very much. Back to the fragrance oils. 2 of the fragrance oils I used in there, the samples, do not discolor and they do not accelerate. So I'm hoping those will maybe balance out that issue. And then the honeysuckle, so I've got 3.4, I'm doing a 5-pound batch. I'm doing a medium strength, so I've got 3.4 ounces of the fragrance oil, and that'll give a medium strength. And 1 ounce of that is the honeysuckle. So that was the only one that had any ricing issues. So I'm hoping with the other fragrances that will help tone that down. I have my lye ready to go cool down, and I did put some of the kaolin clay in there to help keep the fragrance in there. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick little stir real quick. Make sure it's all incorporated in there. And then we'll get started. So I have the same loaf mold, the square mold, excuse me, so to speak, over here, and I do have another one of those mats in the bottom. And then once I pour it, we'll come back tomorrow. It'll be a little bit more than 24 hours tomorrow because I've got office hours tomorrow, so when I get back home in the evening, I'll take a look, and we'll see if I need to pop it in the freezer, because the one that I cut yesterday, I had to pop it in the freezer because the bottom was sticking quite a bit. Of course, I have everything covered in rags, and like I said in the previous video, we don't have the countertops done just yet. It has a really pretty wood, but we're going to put some an epoxy topping on top of it that'll help protect it, and hopefully my husband will be pouring that either tonight or tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get started. I've been talking a lot, sorry. Okay, I'm done with that. Like I said, I want it to be very thin trace, barely emulsified. So working fast, I'm anticipating this. Actually, let me go ahead and I'm going to slide this over and bring my mold up here. Let me move some stuff out of the way real quick. So if you remember with the batch that I did without the micas in it, it actually still stayed fairly fluid. It wasn't too bad. I mean, it did accelerate, but it wasn't really that bad. I'm doing a 2-to-1 ratio with my water and lye. Center that real quick, and then I'm actually soaping a little bit warmer because I have to leave here in a little bit, so I didn't have a lot of time. So I'm at about 90 to 100 degrees. Yesterday I was at 80, about 80, so I'm a little bit warmer. But you see that pretty pinky purple color? I think that's going to be pretty. All right, edge of the stove. So let's go ahead and do this. Like I said, I'm planning on moving pretty fast, and I'm going to pour it right into the mold. I'm not going to do anything fancy with it, and I'm going to add stuff to the top. Do little swirls on the top. Okay, I got all that in there. Get that out of the way. Oh, see, it's setting up already. Stir fast. And I'm just splattered. This is why it's super important that you cover your surfaces to see how that's setting up. Oh, it's got on my pants. Wipe that up really quick. Okay. And you know what? Oh, there it is. Okay. See, look how set up that is. So put that in there. And then I'm going to grab my spatula, scrape my bowl out really fast, or my rubber scraper rather. So this is why, like I said, why you wear pants, and I don't have long sleeve shirt on today. Sorry, I should, but I don't. But I have long gloves on. This is why you want to have stuff covered. I have socks on. Every little bit in there is still a little bit soft, so I'll be able to slide that around. There we go. You see how fast that set up? Okay, well, I'm going to try and smush that down a little bit. Hey, this is Natalie with A Fifth Journey. We're going to actually be doing a 2-for-1 soap in this video. So over here is the one that I had done yesterday, and I did not like what the top looked like. So I was thinking, okay, I could pipe it, but I haven't done that yet, and I personally don't care for the high tops, so that's not something that I want to add to my line, so to speak. So I was trying to think of some other things to do. I could cut the tops off, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do a layer over the top. So I scraped off the top, I scraped the edges, I kind of did some grooves, and I dusted it with a really pretty purple mica. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another batch of soap, and then I'm going to pour a little bit over the top to make a smooth layer with no fragrance in it, and then I'm going to make, since this is a 2.5 pound batch of soap, I'm going to go ahead and use this mold and pour the rest in. Now in here I have the leftover ends, and then I have some soap balls, but then the honeysuckle soap that I had made a few days before that, so this is kind of a 3-for-1 type soap, I had quite a few end pieces because it was all different heights when I had spooned it in. So I had all these little end pieces that I thought about bundling together, but then I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and grate them up. So I grated them, and I'm going to, I put them in here, chopped them up, and then I have some balls. So I'm going to put some of the batter into this to do kind of a confetti type soap, and then pour it in here. And then I do have a little bit of the fragrance oil, which is the, I just have the wild rose, which of course I'm going to anticipate acceleration, but I'm not going to mix it in the whole batch. So probably what I'm going to do is, I don't have very much of the fragrance oil. I only have about half of what is recommended for this size of the batch. So I'm going to go ahead and do, on this I didn't say this earlier, but I'm going to do some in here. This is some of the pink mica that I have been using. I'm going to put some of the soap in here and pour it over the top of that. And I do have some pipettes over there that I'm not going to use just yet, but I'm going to mix the batter in with that. Probably put maybe half of whatever's left with the fragrance oil, put a layer in, and then I have the soap balls. So I'm just going to do some different layers in there. And I forgot to get something out. I do want to put an embossing mat in the bottom, and I forgot to get that. So let me grab that out really quick. And my kids, it's this evening on a Friday. I don't usually ever soap in the evenings or on Fridays where the kids are home, but they're in the other room playing video games and they're just going to be loud. So you'll just hear them because that's how it is when you have kids. Okay, so go ahead and get started. I do want to pour a little tiny bit of the batter in this, and I'll scrape it to fill in the little molds. So I'm going to go to a very light trace, and let's go ahead and get started. So I've got lots of steps, and let's see if we can get everything in and not deal with the crazy acceleration that we've been doing for the last 3 projects. So I have my lye solution ready to go. I'm cool. I'm still about the same as what I've been doing the last couple of days. I'm about 100 and, no, excuse me. I'm at about 85 degrees. I didn't mean to say 100. So still cool. And let's go ahead and get started. Hey, this is Natalie with the 5th Journey. Please excuse the wobbling. I went back and forth on whether or not I was going to do a video on this and just delete the whole thing, but you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do it because the fails are just as important as the successes because it helps you learn. So I completely made a goof yesterday, and I ended up with a soap that is slightly lye heavy in some of the areas. And I realized it about an hour after I had poured it. So what had happened is I knew that rose fragrance oil is finicky and accelerates. So I took out an ounce of the oils for the soap and added an ounce of the fragrance oil. But what I did not do was add that entire amount back into the soap batter. I did layers. So what happened is I ended up with layers of lye heavy soap and then layers of oil heavy soap. So I just cut these this morning, and they're not super lye heavy because otherwise I wouldn't be touching it with my hands. But as you can see, this part is very, very crumbly. So that layer right there is super, super crumbly. See that? So I will be grating this up and using it. It's probably laundry detergent or something, but I will not be doing anything with this. Since I know exactly what it is, I have read that you can rebatch, but I'm not going to even bother with that. Not even go there. So coming over here, this is the soap that I originally started this whole thing with. And this is fine. This is not lye heavy. This is good to go. But there was that layer that I had added right there. And that layer, as you can see, is the lye heavy layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of that off. I'm going to clean them up, wash them off, so there's none of that part in there. So they're just going to be pretty uniform bars, but I'm going to cut all of that off and still be able to salvage this part, but that part will be laundry soap. So I'll come back once I've cut it. But you know, it's kind of sad, but it's a learning experience. So definitely make sure that when you are taking oils out to deal with a finicky fragrance, that you add it all back into the entire batch. And especially since I was doing a small batch, it was only a 2.5 pound batch of soap, 1 ounce of oils being taken out is quite a bit. Okay guys, so we are going to do an experiment. This has just turned into quite the adventure in soap making with this whole floral batch of soap. So I'm basically turning one batch of soap into another batch of soap into another batch of soap. So what I'm going to do now, I have been doing some research, doing some reading, and the lye heavy part, which is right here, there is not really that much extra lye in it. So, and I know exactly what I did. So what I can do is do a rebatch on it. Now this section here, so I can't really use this as laundry soap. Let me just back up. I can use the top part, but this middle part I really can't because that's where the extra oils are. And you don't want to use that in your laundry because you can leave oily bits on your clothes. So what I'm going to do is you can see I'm already doing it. I'm finally grating this up, and I'm going to melt it down, and I'm going to do the boiling water method, and I have a oven bag. I actually already had some. So once I'm done grating that up, I'm going to add a little bit of liquid. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit extra oil. I really don't need to because technically my recipe is correct. I just messed up with the layers. So as a whole, I have the correct amount of lye to oil ratio to give myself 5% super fat. And that's something else that I had thought about. It's like, okay, if I had a 0% super fat, would this layer be okay? I could let it sit for a couple weeks and that the lye would neutralize with the air, but I'm just not going to do that. I want to have a soap that I do feel very comfortable with that I can use. So, and also I don't think it's very pretty. I mean, that is pretty, but this is not pretty. So I don't really mind grating it down. It did not have the look that I wanted. That's okay. And then also over here, this is, as you can see, a lot of soap compared to the 8 bars of soap that I did. So all of this, if you go back to that video that I was trying to fix the top on that started this whole fiasco, these are bits that I cut off. So I'm gonna, hopefully I'm not going too fast, come over here. I'm in my kitchen. Over here is where I had those bars of soap. So what I did is, this was the honeysuckle, rose, and lilac. So it smells really good. So what I did is I cut off the part that I was trying to fix, and I just have some uneven bars. And these are fine. There's no issues with these. They smell really good. So I just cut off the ugly part. I cut off the part that I had tried to pour over. And the bit that was left over, that's what I had grated up into this right here. So that will help as well because there's a large amount of that, probably equal parts of that will help balance it out, so to speak. So I'm going to finish grating this up. I'm going to put it into the bag, and then I'll show you the next step. I'm not going to videotape the whole thing because this does take a really long time compared to just regular soap making. So I'm going to finish grating this up and then I will come back. I have all of my soap grated, and it is in one of the oven bags that you use like in a crock pot or an oven, and then I have my big stock pot over here that I'm going to be boiling it in. And I want to just give you a reference because I know there are some people who do make rebatch soap often, and that's completely fine. But if you're looking at doing this just for fun, just to give you a reference, this is 80 ounces of soap. This is an 8-ounce block of cheese. So if you enjoy grating cheese, this would be 10 blocks of cheese, just to give you a reference. So it took me quite a bit of time to get that all done. And I mean, you can chunk it, but if you have a lye issue, you don't want to chunk it. You want to make sure you grate it. But that took me a while. So that is a lot of soap. That's, you know, about a 5-pound batch of soap right there. So again, I'm going to go ahead, fill up my pot, get the water boiling. We're going to do this on a low boil, so like a simmer basically, for half an hour. I'm going to come back and check on it, squish it up, and we'll come back and see in about 30 minutes how it's looking. We are at about 15 minutes. Go ahead and take a look. So, it's definitely doing something. It's getting more gelatinous looking and blending together. So cover it back up and come back in another 15 minutes and check on it. It's been 30 minutes. Whoop, there goes the steam. I'm going to take a look at it. I think it still has a ways to go, so I'm going to go ahead and lay it down on the cutting board. So, as you can see, this part is melted right there, but the inside part is not. So I'm going to go ahead and squish this up. I've got my oven mitt on. Squish it up really good, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it back in and check on it probably another 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to smush it in there. Kind of looks like meat. But that's kind of usually what happens. That's kind of disturbing. Hope you guys are getting a laugh out of this whole video. I'm going to get a different one. It's like shimmery meat, because I've got micas in it. So if you remember, I had the gold and the pink and the purple mica. So mash it in there. It's been 24 hours and I went ahead and took this out of the mold. So this is the Rebatch. The color has muted down to really lavender color. One thing I did when I smoothed it out, but I didn't say this earlier, is I covered it with saran wrap. And then when it was still warm, so I went ahead and put a layer of saran wrap on it, and then I smushed it around to flatten it out. So that was a lot easier than trying to smooth it out with a spoon. And I apologize, everybody's home right now, so I'm going to try and talk fast and get through this. But on the other side, I had done the embossing mat, and it's the nature of the soap, you really can't get a good design, but I put a little bit of texture in there, and also I had put some of the mica on there, so you can still see, I had like a little rose pattern up here, and then this was like a little hibiscus pattern, so hopefully you can see that in the video, but you do have a little bit of pattern there, and this soap does give a very rustic look, so let's go ahead and cut it. I went ahead and trimmed the edges and rolled that up into a ball. And I'll go ahead and finish cutting those other ones in a little bit, but there you have it. So ended up with the Rebatch soap. Yeah, I can just clean up these edges just by rubbing it over, and they'll harden up as they cure. Right now they're still pretty soft. So we have a usable soap now, which is wonderful. They still need to go through the cure where the water is evaporated out, but these will be ready to go in about 4 to 6 weeks.